The moment the world chooses peace could be the exact moment Bitcoin makes its most violent move. Imagine this. You wake up, check your phone, and every headline is screaming, America and Iran agree to talks. War tensions cooling down. Global markets surge overnight. Stocks are flying. Oil is dropping. Fear is disappearing. And then you open your crypto app. Bitcoin is moving fast. Green candles. Momentum building. Twitter going crazy. Some people are shouting, this is it. 100K is next. But others are warning, this is a trap. Bitcoin could actually fall after peace. So what's the truth? Because this isn't just about war. This isn't just about politics. This is about one of the biggest financial shifts happening behind the scenes, one that could decide whether Bitcoin explodes past $100,000 or gets rejected again. And here's the scary part. Most investors are looking at the wrong signal. They're watching headlines, while smart money is watching something completely different. So in this video, we're going to break it all down. What really happens to Bitcoin during war versus peace? Why peace could trigger a massive pump or a silent crash? And the one hidden factor that actually controls Bitcoin's next move. Stay till the end, because what you're about to understand might completely change the way you see Bitcoin forever. Every time war hits the headlines, Bitcoin doesn't just react, it reveals its true identity. Let's go back to when tensions between the United States and Iran suddenly escalated. The moment the news broke, markets didn't wait. Panic hit instantly. Investors rushed to safety. And Bitcoin, it dropped fast. Within hours, BTC saw a sharp sell-off as fear spread across global markets. This is what we call a risk-off reaction. When uncertainty rises, people pull money out of volatile assets like crypto. But here's where it gets interesting. Bitcoin didn't stay down for long. Instead of collapsing further, like many expected, it did something unexpected. It stabilized, then started climbing back. While traditional markets struggled to find direction, Bitcoin began showing strength. Buyers stepped in, confidence slowly returned, and within days, BTC recovered a large portion of its losses. This pattern has repeated again and again. Shock hits, Bitcoin drops. Fear peaks, Bitcoin stabilizes. Uncertainty continues, Bitcoin recovers. So what does that tell us? Bitcoin is no longer just a risk asset. It behaves like a hybrid, part speculative investment, part safe haven alternative. And during global conflict, that identity becomes very clear. Because war doesn't destroy Bitcoin, it stress tests it, and every time, Bitcoin comes back stronger. War is the only force that can crash Bitcoin today and secretly send it to the moon tomorrow. At first glance, war looks terrible for Bitcoin. And in the short term, it absolutely is. The moment conflict escalates, fear spreads like wildfire. Investors don't think, they react. Money flows out of risky assets, and Bitcoin is often the first to get hit. You'll see sharp red candles, sudden liquidations, and headlines screaming panic. This is the classic risk-off phase, where survival matters more than profit. But here's where things flip. War doesn't just create fear, it forces governments into action. To stabilize economies during uncertainty, central banks often step in with powerful tools, printing more money, injecting liquidity into markets, lowering interest rates. And this is where Bitcoin quietly benefits. Because when more money enters the system, the value of traditional currency weakens over time. Investors start looking for alternatives, assets that can protect their wealth. That's when Bitcoin enters the picture. It becomes a hedge, a digital escape from inflation and currency devaluation. So while war pushes Bitcoin down initially, it also plants the seeds for its next rally. This creates a powerful contradiction. Short-term, fear destroys price. Long-term, policy decisions fuel growth. And if history has shown us anything, it's this. Bitcoin doesn't rise during the chaos itself. It rises because of what governments do after the chaos begins. Peace might sound boring, but for Bitcoin, it can trigger the most explosive moves you'll ever see. Now let's flip the narrative. What happens when war tensions cool down, and suddenly, the United States and Iran move toward dialogue? At first, everything looks bullish. Markets love certainty. The moment peace talks begin, fear disappears and confidence returns. Investors who were sitting on the sidelines start deploying capital again. You'll typically see stocks rally hard, oil prices drop, global sentiment turns positive, and Bitcoin, it often reacts fast. In a risk-on environment, liquidity flows back into high-growth assets, and Bitcoin is usually at the front of that wave. Momentum builds, social media hype explodes, and retail investors jump in, afraid of missing out. This can create a sharp, aggressive rally in a very short time. But here's the twist most people ignore. Peace doesn't just remove fear, it also removes urgency. Without crisis, governments may slow down stimulus. Central banks might stop printing excess money. Interest rates could stabilize or even rise, and that changes everything. Because Bitcoin thrives on excess liquidity, not stability. So while peace can ignite a short-term surge, it can also quietly weaken the long-term fuel behind Bitcoin's growth. This creates a dangerous illusion. Prices go up quickly, confidence returns, but underlying support may fade. And that's why the biggest moves after peace announcements often trap the majority before the real direction reveals itself. Bitcoin doesn't follow headlines. It follows the flow of money, and that's where the real game is played. By now, you might think war or peace decides Bitcoin's future. But here's the truth most people miss. Bitcoin doesn't move because of events. It moves because of liquidity. Liquidity simply means how much money is flowing through the financial system. And in today's world, that flow is controlled by central banks, especially the Federal Reserve. When liquidity increases, markets feel it instantly. More money means more investing, more risk-taking, more demand for assets like Bitcoin. That's when BTC thrives. But when liquidity tightens, everything changes. Higher interest rates, reduced stimulus, and stricter policies pull money out of the system. Investors become cautious, risk appetite drops, and Bitcoin starts losing momentum. This is why two identical headlines can produce completely different outcomes. Peace with easy money, Bitcoin explodes. Peace with tight money, Bitcoin stalls. And history backs this up. During periods of aggressive monetary expansion, Bitcoin has seen some of its strongest rallies. Not because of news, but because capital had nowhere else to go. So if you really want to understand Bitcoin's next move, stop focusing only on geopolitics. Start watching interest rates, money supply, central bank decisions. Because at the end of the day, Bitcoin isn't driven by fear or peace. It's driven by how much money is chasing it. Bitcoin's next move isn't a mystery. It's a set of scenarios, and only one of them creates the next 100K explosion. At this point, everything comes down to what happens after peace. Not the headlines, but the reaction. Let's break down the three most realistic futures for Bitcoin. Scenario 1. Peace plus strong economy. If peace leads to economic stability, strong growth, and controlled inflation, central banks may keep interest rates higher for longer. That means less cheap money. Investors shift towards safer assets. Risk appetite decreases. Bitcoin struggles to gain momentum. In this case, BTC could move sideways, trapped between optimism and limited liquidity. Likely range, $60,000 to $90,000. Scenario 2. Peace plus economic slowdown. Now here's where things get interesting. If peace reveals underlying economic weakness, slow growth, rising unemployment, central banks may step in again. Rate cuts return, money printing increases, liquidity floods the system. And Bitcoin? This is its perfect environment. This is the scenario where BTC can break past 100K and push into new all-time highs. Scenario 3. Fake peace plus ongoing tension. What if peace is temporary? Talks happen, but tensions remain beneath the surface. This creates uncertainty without full panic. Markets stay volatile. Investors hedge their bets. Bitcoin slowly trends upward. A steady climb, not explosive, but strong. And here's the key takeaway. Bitcoin doesn't need perfect conditions. It just needs the right kind of money flow to ignite the next massive move. While retail investors chase headlines, smart money is quietly positioning for the move nobody sees coming. Right now, most people are glued to the news. They're asking, will the United States and Iran go to war? They're also asking, will peace talks succeed? But smart investors are asking a completely different question. What will central banks do next? Because experienced players understand one critical truth. Markets don't reward emotions, they reward positioning. Instead of reacting to every headline, smart money focuses on signals that actually move Bitcoin. Interest rate expectations, liquidity injections, inflation trends. While retail traders panic buy or panic sell, institutions are building strategies. They accumulate during fear. They reduce exposure during hype. And most importantly, they stay patient. Right now, Bitcoin's resilience during uncertainty is already sending a message. Despite global tension, it hasn't collapsed. It has held structure, recovered quickly, and maintained strong interest from buyers. That's not random, that's positioning. It suggests that large players are not waiting for clarity. They're preparing for multiple outcomes at once. Some are hedging, some are accumulating slowly, some are waiting for confirmation before going all in. But none of them are blindly reacting. And that's the biggest lesson here. Headlines create noise, liquidity creates opportunity, positioning creates profit. Because in the end, the biggest gains don't come from predicting the news, they come from being ready before the news hits. The next 100K Bitcoin move won't be announced on the news. It will happen before most people even realize what's going on. So let's bring it all together. Will Bitcoin hit 100K again if the United States and Iran agree to peace talks? The honest answer is, it depends. Not on the headlines, not on the politicians, but on what happens next behind the scenes. Because peace can do two very different things. It can inject confidence into markets, push investors back into risk assets, and ignite a powerful rally in Bitcoin. Or it can stabilize the global economy, reduce the need for stimulus, and quietly remove the fuel that Bitcoin needs to explode. And that's the part most people miss. Bitcoin doesn't move because the world becomes peaceful or chaotic. It moves because of money flow. So instead of asking, will peace send Bitcoin to 100K? Start asking, are central banks printing more money? Are interest rates rising or falling? Is liquidity increasing or shrinking? Because those are the real triggers. And right now, the market is setting up for a move that could catch millions of people off guard. The question is, will you be reacting when it happens? Or will you already be positioned? Because in this game, the biggest opportunity comes to those who understand the system before the system reveals itself.